Not enough people are talking about this underreported story of United States citizens' tax dollars being used to pay millions of dollars to other countries, mainly African countries, to take asylum seekers, people who have came to the United States seeking asylum, and stand in line in the process, and they've uprooted them from the process and deported them, and taking our money that Congress did not intend to be used for that, to pay these people upwards of $30,000 per migrant. Meanwhile, they can't pay SNAP benefits to people. I digress. So the story is not necessarily new. You might have seen the Washington Post recently did a story on it, but all over the entire summer internationally, The Guardian did a news piece. New York Times did a wonderful takedown, because a lot of this has been done under the radar. No transparency. They're using the funds, like I said, that wasn't allocated for that. There's a query on that. I'm going to explain to you and give you a little bit about where the money is coming from, who's behind this, and why they're doing it in the middle of the night. We've seen this time and time again, whether it's the Venezuelan men that was taken in the middle of the night in that helicopter. You might have heard about that story. Whether it's the children, they took a whole bunch of little babies, woke them out of the bed, and tried to put them in a plane to go dump them in another country. And then these folks, in this case, the African migrant in the article, and that's why I'm interested in this, because I have a personal connection, because someone from my native Sierra Leone was involved in a news story, and I was like, oh my God, and they're still doing it. And it's still going on. And it's the African nations are on the other side of this. And here's the thing about the African nations is because the 58 countries that the United States decided to be designated safe harbor or safe third party countries, because they want to just get rid of there's an ethnic cleansing we have going on. Let's be honest with it. So they've identified 58 countries. The majority of them are in Africa. And to call them safe harbor or safe third party is ridiculous, because majority of the countries are actually on the United States State Department watch list of countries that Americans are not to go to, because they have human rights abuses. So they're aware that if they deport people there, they're more likely to be tortured. They're deporting them to places that have a long history of human rights abuses. And it's in violation of the United Nations, of the Geneva Convention Against Torture, which is Article 3, which the United States is a signatory to. So they know very well they're not supposed to do this. The nation of Ghana is also a signatory, so they also know better. Marco Rubio, State Department, know that. So they're using it as a backdoor to just dump more brown bodies and black bodies out of the country. And I'm so upset, because they're using nations that Donald Trump had previously called shithole. We know infamously he's trying to get white South Africans. He's asked for whites to come back, and the man is racist. He's racist, sexist, xenophobe, adjudicated sexual abuser, and the judge already clarified that he's a rapist. So that is and he's dimension declined. He's used the R word, used a slur. Anyway, I digress. So I want to talk more about this case. I'm going to give you the details as where the money's coming from, my personal connection to it. And I want this to be more than just sort of rage bait, to give awareness. So if you have a House or Senate member, if you're American, you can reach out to them. But there has been some inquiries already. I'll tell you about that as well. Then you can actually use your voice to help bring the alarm and raise awareness to this, and at least. And then the back end of it, if you're interested, I'm going to give some resources and tips and suggestions for those who might be in a situation, if that's you or someone you know, a neighbor or family members, what they should be doing now if they haven't already done it. Some of the examples I'm going to talk about it in this video were caught unawares and just didn't know and didn't expect what's happening to them, and they weren't prepared. So I'm going to tell you what you need to be doing to get prepared. So I also likened it in a teaser to this to the transatlantic slave trade, which I know is hyperbolic and extreme, and I want to tread carefully here, but as a native African myself, I found disappointed in the fact that nations that Donald Trump previously called shitholes are participating in what it looks like a reverse transatlantic slave trade, because there are parallels where Europeans went to Africa and exchanged bodies in exchange for money, commodities. They used bodies as commodities. And back in the day, it was Ghanaians or Sierra Leoneans using tribes that they had captured in exchange for gunpowder. And the people they sent over the Atlantic were then treated like human chattel, tortured, raped, maimed, dehumanized tremendously. And now we have the reverse of it, where the United States, again, commodities, money being exchanged, but this time it's going the other direction, where it's similar. They're still paying Africans, but this time, rather than receiving the bodies, they're sending the bodies again, because when they receive them, Ghana, for example, they're then sending them to countries where they're going to be tortured, or with reckless disregard as to where they're going to go. And the United States does not give a flying fuck what happens to those people on the back end. So you're dumping people and not caring what happens to them. And when the people arrive, they're being tortured because they were running away from the countries. And Ghana is sending the people, and Eswatini is sending the people who, according to the Geneva Convention Against Torture, should not be sent back to their countries, and they're using it as a backdoor way of doing it. Initial 14 deportees sent to Ghana had won protections in the United States immigration courts from removals to their home countries for fear of persecution, according to their lawyers. However, they sent them to Ghana as a loophole because Accra made it clear that people would be forwarded to their home countries. One deportee, a bisexual man from the Gambia, was immediately sent home by Ghanaian authorities and is living in hiding because of same-sex relations are criminalized in a socially conservative country, according to court filings. 2 Togolese nationals were deported to Togo border, with Benjamin said, crying and repeating, "It's over, it's over." He said, adding they hadn't since gone into hiding. Why into hiding? Because Benjamin said that he feared persecution from the Nigerian government because of his involvement in politics, and his family, which includes his wife and children who are U.S. citizens, did not expect him to be sent to Nigeria. He said that he was beaten by Immigration and Customs Forces, ICE, when he refused to board the plane that went to Ghana. They're giving $7.5 million to Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea, so according to a Guardian article, it says the money sent to Equatorial Guinea is the first taken from a fund apportioned by Congress to address international refugee crisis. The money is usually used to resettle refugees in the United States. That has been instead been repurposed under the Trump administration to hasten their deportation instead. And according to government data, they said that, for example, the vice president of Theodore Obiang, Malbasaga, I can't pronounce his name, I'm so sorry. They've been accused of embezzling funds for years. And Jean Shaheen, who's the top-ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, said it's highly unusual for those types of payments, those cash payments being sent to countries with history of corruption, and it has the United States complicit in human trafficking. And it raised serious tax dollars using to send people to countries and submitting them to human trafficking, human smuggling, and other human rights abuses. And also in July, the UN warned that the policy the United States is using is going to be used because they were sending people so fast in the same day that they're denying the people the rights to their lawyers, the right to determine to make sure that they're not going to be sent to be persecuted. And that's what happened. Into the lawsuit filed on behalf of 5 migrants in September. They said they were detained in Ghana for 5 years in this place called Dima Camp that had squalid conditions and was surrounded by armed military guards in an open air detention facility with tents and little running water. That will show, despite the minimal pass-through involvement of the Ghanaian government, they still had the huge lift to help the United States do their dirty work and get around something that they know they couldn't do otherwise. So they left it on the shoulders of Ghana. We have instances of some of the men who were sent said they were just dumped at the border with no paperwork, no documentation whatsoever to fend for themselves. And that's unaccounted for, that's unprecedented, and that's downright cruel to do that. But they did it because they have no regard for those human bodies. The same way they didn't have regard for black and brown bodies that came over, that they got from the Africans back in time. It's the same disregard for black and brown bodies that you would send someone to a nation with reckless disregard. Now, there was a couple of lawsuits, one here, and then when the one here didn't work out because the United States Supreme Court, the conservatives, the United States Supreme Court are complicit, and I think a part of this, or just they're now at this point, I'm like, they are as corrupt, and they're all with it. They know this is going to happen. They know people are going to be abused. They know people who are lawful asylum seekers who are waiting in line, who are decent people. Like I said, 1/3 of the people deported have criminal backgrounds. That means the majority, overwhelming majority, do not. And they know this because when the lawsuits are filed, including one filed with Judge Tanya Chutkan was taking it. It was filed by some Nigerians. I think it was like three Nigerians and a couple of Gambians who were sent to Ghana. One of them was an 18-year-old Gambian gay man who said that don't send me to the Ghana. There was the United States had immigration lawyers that said, do not send this person to the Gambia. Said, do not send these three to Nigeria. The United States sent these people to Ghana, and Ghana sent them to Nigeria and the Gambia. The man from the Gambia said right now he's hiding. Let me read to you what specifically he said in terms of what happened to him after he was gathered in the middle of the night with some other people. Let me read you from you his declaration in the lawsuit. He says, I was chained at hands, waists, and ankles and placed on a military cargo plane with none of my belongings, along with 13 other people from West African nations, 10 men, and 4 women in total. 4 of the people were put in straitjackets because they refused to get on the plane without speaking to their attorneys. So you want to speak to your lawyer, we're going to put you in a straitjacket. I'm going to tell you about those straitjackets, by the way, in a second. We were not told where we were going. That sounds familiar because when I did reporting on the Alien Enemies Act, the 200-something Venezuelans, men and women who were just, again, in the middle of the night, put on a plane, a lot of them weren't told. So that's kind of really cruel. That shows they value these people less than human. Racist, sexist, cruel, barbaric, xenophobic, goonish, thugs, brutes that's running this country in the Department of Homeland Security. They're utterly cruel, racist piece of shit. Anyway, while we were on the plane, it says the 6 ICE officers, the plane stopped to refuel, and they said we're going to go to Ghana, and then the Ghana was going to send us to our home countries. So according to this person's declaration, he overheard his hearsay. He says that they were told that it says while the fuel stopped in U.S. Virgin Islands, the head of ICE, a bald Caucasian man, told me that those in the plane were going to be sent to Ghana and that Ghana would be sent to our home countries. The home countries the United States know that they weren't supposed to be sent to, according to that declaration. Now, here's some reports on other instances of people being sent off that are horrific. One of the men said that he was put under 5-point shackles and he became dizzy and he tripped while going up the stairs. And the officers mistook his stumbling as resistance, and immediately a camouflage-clad officers pushed him on the tarmac and onto a wrap device. Like he was shackled and he tripped. And he says, oh, you're resisting? I'm going to now put you in a straitjacket. And he said, he bundled me like a log would from all sides. And then they were just carrying me like a corpse. Like the humanity of that. Another man interviewed by the AP, this is from an AP report, that he took him out of his cell in front of other detainees, put him in a wrap, leaving him in there for hours in view of the others as warning them not to speak up. Like he just took the other man out of the cell and decided to use him as an example and put him in for no reason. He wasn't doing anything. He was just sitting there waiting to go on the plane, and they picked him up, put him in the device to scare other people. Is that not torture? That is absolutely torture. Oh my God. Then the example that I'm sharing with you, that says a personal example, is that there was a story reported recently of a woman from my area, 58 years old, Rabbiatu Kiate from Sierra Leone, my native Sierra Leone, who, like a lot of these people, was an asylum seeker. She fled Sierra Leone during the war. She'd come to the United States. According to her son, Muhammad, during the news report that I saw, his dad was abusive. And so rather than file for his mom to get her citizenship or her papers, the mom decided to leave. So she's a victim. We have laws protecting people who are domestic violence abuse victims who are in the United States. We protect them normally under normal, recent, like decent regimes. So this woman who was going in, checking in, she is a U.S. citizen child. She eventually sent for her parents, who eventually became U.S. citizen, but she was just checking in normally. When she went in to check in July, they detained her and said, oh, you have a live removal thing, and they sent her to a facility in Louisiana, or I think it was Louisiana, somewhere in the South, where she stayed for 5 months. And they eventually sent her to Ghana, and there's a viral video of her being dragged up by her hands and feet. She says when she went to Ghana, she was in a hotel there for 6 days, and then they took her because she knew she was going to a place that she said, I don't want to go because they're going to torture me. They put her on a van, and then they took her there and dumped her there, and they told her that that's where they were going. So she said she was shackled by her hands and feet during the transport in the military vehicle. The dehumanization of it all. Why is that? Just reminds me of the way they put those black bodies side by side in the little underbelly of the ships and carried them over, because they did not value their lives, their humanity, because they're African. This other West African deportee says that they bundled me and my colleagues and tied us up in straitjackets. And then if we ask for a lawyer, they use this as an excuse. The inhumanity of it all. And other thing, and here's the thing about straitjackets. The straitjackets have been linked to, it says, AP identified 43 times when those straitjackets, someone died, and 12 of them was because of the restraint played a role in their death. This United States government, in 2023, there was the United Department of Homeland Security's Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties raised concern about using those. It started during the Obama administration, so in terms of considering those as for someone to use, and there's legitimate reason to use them, but it's supposed to be limited. Nonetheless, even though Obama started it, they said 91% of the straitjacket sales have been under the Trump administration. So about $250,000, 91% of the spending on that was from the Trump administration. And it has uses, like if someone's going to hurt the ICE agents or hurt themselves, that's when you use it. However, it's been reports have been saying that actually, it's dehumanized. It's a resort to, okay. We have Fatima Maroof, who's a Texas A&M law professor who sued ICE over the use of this device, said that it should be used as a last resort of restraint after they've tried other things. But you can't be using it just because it causes physiological, psychological harm. An AP report said that all of the folks who were put in it denied fighting with the officers. Like they just put them in there. Like I mentioned the example of the guy, they just put him in there to use an example of others. And they just said so they won't speak up. Again, the office that determined that the Office of Civil Rights that said to warn the Department of Homeland Security, it was dismantled. And Trish McLaughlin, the mouthpiece, the ICE Barbies propaganda machine, said that they removed those officers because they got in the way. Like, we don't have time to regard people's rights and humanity because we don't regard those people as shit. So that's getting in the way of us being cruel and crazy. Yeah. Here's the problem, though, where I say United States Supreme Court went in there this summer and they said the Trump administration had the right to do it because they're complicit in this crazy-ass administration. Every single thing that happens, every food that gets hungry families that don't get fed because of the food rot on the tarmac when they allow them to dismantle USAID, people who lost their jobs and their family members, anything, the negative impacts of that. All of these folks who go to these countries to be tortured and particularly unended, all of those is on United States Supreme Court for allowing Donald Trump to do these things when they know the balance of the harm. There's no harm to the Trump administration's executive authority, while the harm to people while these cases, anyway, I won't get into that. That's a case for another day. I digress. Let me just stick to the thing. So let me just stay on point here. So in a nutshell, the judge said because what the Supreme Court did, they had a chilling effect. So she said because the Ghanaians and the Gambians were already out of the United States, that she couldn't do anything. However, during her opinion, she said, and she asked during the hearing of the Trump administration, are you aware that Ghana is doing this? And they said, yeah, we concede that. You drive home this point that not just Ghana, but also the United States was aware that Ghana was going to send the people to their countries, even though the United States had a duty to make sure that those people don't be sent to the other country. It said the Justice Department's lawyers representing the United States government during the hearing did not dispute that Ghana plans to return the deportees to their native countries and conceded that the Ghanaian government appears to be violating diplomatic assurances that it allegedly made, vowing not to send these migrants to places where they could be harmed. But the Justice Department said they could not tell Ghana what to do. And that's when the judge was like, that's disingenuous fuck. Well, she didn't say that. She said that it's an end run to bypass legal protections that they have, and the United States can retrieve them, return to the United States, or transfer them to another country where they'll be safe. But to say that you Ghana, she added, it could tell that Ghana is violating its agreement with the U.S. But they were like, oh, well. And she says, how is that not your violation of your obligation? You're talking about your hands could be tied. But she said her hands are tied because the Supreme Court, goddammit, put a pause any order that required the American government to act to stop the returns. She implied that. Damn you, Supreme Court. Damn you, freaking conservative. Y'all so-called Christians. He had to concede that because according to the declarations from the 18-year-old Gambian gay migrant, that he heard them say these Ghana's going to send them to their home countries. So they were aware. And he says, well, once Ghana's there, we can't do anything from it. And that's pretty flippant. Judge Tanya Chutkan says, that's kind of ridiculous and disingenuous to say that, it's essentially the end run to bypass legal protections that these deportees have. She asked, how is this not a violation of your obligation to not do this? The ACLU attorney representing the African deportees said that with full acknowledgement that these individuals are going to be sent to danger, they cannot simply wash their hands of this matter. Also, to take note that the man from the Gambia said that there was an ICE official on the plane, a bald Caucasian or Latino man, who told him that the plane being sent to Ghana and that Ghana was going to send the people to their home countries. So that seems to suggest that the United States government knew very well. So when the Department of Justice attorneys were saying that the arrangement with Ghana was that the Ghana was not supposed to send them, kind of conflicts with what everyone else understood. Well, according to the declaration, that they knew that Ghana was going to send them off. And so now the question is, they need to get the agreement. Was there truly agreement with Ghana to not send those people? Or did they just say, I don't know? Because there are also reports that from people that say that when they arrived, the Ghana officials asked them, what did they do to be deported? Where are they going? Like the Ghana officials had no clue what the hell was going on. So it's like they didn't really communicate. So they didn't really care. But that's what they did. And it's so bad that Ghana did it again later on. There was reports on that. And subsequently, realizing the United States is not safe right now to sue, some rights organizations sued Ghana for their role in it. So a group of 14 people become the latest West Africans deported. And so Oliver Barker-Vormer, who represents migrants, says the latest 14 arrived on Monday to bring the overall to 42 deportees accepted by the Ghanaian government. And so his group, Democracy Hub, filed a lawsuit against Ghana's government, alleging that their agreement with Washington is unconstitutional. But I think he's bringing this against the Ghana, because Ghana itself also is a signatory, and they know they're not supposed to deport someone to a third party nation that they know is going to be tortured. But Ghana's doing it anyway. And Eswatini said there was I forget where I read this at, but official Eswatini said that people are going to be sent to their home countries. So they're all complicit. They're all part of this. Now, here's what I want you to know at the end of all of this, that what happened to Rabbiatu, what happened to these men and women being put in straitjackets, the state-funded human trafficking, it's outsourced torture, it's ethnic cleansing by proxy, it's taxpayer-funded law breaking. Now, my next segment, what I'm going to do is say it's a shit show. So what you're going to have to do, I'm going to share with you, is if you are a U.S. citizen or you have U.S. citizen children who haven't gotten their passport, get their passport now. I'm going to walk you through what that looks like and what you need to get if you don't have it already. Then I'm going to walk you through some documents that you have to get today and some things you need to do to secure your property, because Rabbiatu has a home with her son who seems like an adult kid, but if you have home and you're not co-owner with somebody, that could be a problem. If you have children you're leaving behind, that could be a child problem. I have a friend who works at the self-help desk at a court in my county, and she says the number one thing that people come to is for power of attorney. So I'm going to walk you through the power of attorney, a simple one that you can get online for free to fill it out, and what you need to be doing today to protect yourself in case this ever happens. And share this video with other folks. So if that's not you, if you're not interested in this, thank you for watching so far. Share this news. If you have a congressional rep, let them know about this. Keep on track of this. If you get my case tracker at jjlegal.com, which is $3.98, and you're interested in this, add this to the case tracker and keep track of this case, and so we can see what happens, because we're going to see there's going to be accountability for this.